So hey, JB.
What's up?
All right. Today, I just want to chop it up with you a little bit. I definitely want to unfold for everybody who doesn't know. JB, author, podcast host, content creator, former D1 collegiate athlete. We have a designer,
Throw it in there,
entrepreneur, and creator of DoMode, the digital platform for introverts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Mack, and I do unfold. I do want to just make sure that we open up a whole space for people to tell their stories and share their insight. So today we're just going to talk about everything that JB has going on.
Yeah. Well, that's dope. I never got an intro like that. Someone the other day called me an artist, and I was like, how? But when they broke it down, saying that, because in my mind, artist is a musician or a rapper or whatever, or someone who literally just paints on canvas. But artist is a wide variety of professions, and if you're a creative, then you're most likely an artist in some capacity. So I thought that was pretty dope.
I mean, you would be the super creative. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty dope. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to talk about some of the things that I think don't get talked about that much.
Definitely.
But yeah.
All right, let's unfold. I know, so starting with you being an introvert, I know DoMode is your creation. And if you're not hip to DoMode, #DoMode, word to the shirt.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. You are an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And you've created this space for introverts. What made you do that? Do you think that there is a lack of visibility for introverts as opposed to extroverts?
So with extroverts, don't need any intro. They don't need any fanfare. They create their own fanfare. And introverts are kind of laid back. They're people who stay in the back, in a cut, and they tend to get misunderstood. And being an introvert, I felt like I wanted to be able to speak to not only my experience, but the people who are like me experience, and especially introverted entrepreneurs. I feel like it's tough to be an entrepreneur, period, let alone an introverted one, because you're so inside yourself and so inside your mind. So I just felt like it was necessary to create a space for people like me who wanted to be in business, but don't exactly go to like the conventional networking events and going out with 1,000 business cards and coming back with 1,000 business cards because you're an introvert and you don't want to talk to nobody. I've done that plenty of time, and I've been in big rooms and I'm not shaking the hands that I need to and all that stuff not because I don't want to, because that's just who I am. And again, it gets misunderstood as you being fully yourself, or people don't know, so they assume.
Yeah.
And but no, it's just you just not comfortable in those spaces. So what DoMode is and growing to be is a space for introverts and introverted entrepreneurs and ambitious individuals. So that's
which is really dope, which is super dope, because when you have that type of personality, it does become really hard. I find myself having that issue too. I went to one of your collectives, and it definitely changed my course, definitely reshaped my path. Because the year of the doer, which you did this year. So this year is the year of the doer.
For sure.
And what made you say that for 2019? For
2019, I'm big on not trying to make big declarations. Maybe that's an introverted thing about me. But I did feel like this year was a year that is a culmination of a lot of hard work. And for a lot of people, not just myself, I'm seeing a nice wave through the collective of people that I know doing their own things in their own right. So I just felt like everybody's doing this year in some capacity.
Yeah.
And this is the year to do it. And it's nice to have something, some mantra, something to preach, something to say out there. So I felt like 2019, above all the years previous, this is the year to do it.
So get it done. If you're not hip already to DoMode, you definitely should check out one of his collectives. JB, you were talking about not shaking the right hands, and you created your own space for that.
Yeah.
So what made you create your own space and host it as an introvert? Is that difficult?
So another misconception about introverts is that you don't want to talk to anyone. Mm-hmm. Like anything, it's a spectrum. You know what I mean? So you have your introverts on the far left and the far right. You have the extremes. But for the most part, being around like-minded individuals for an introvert, you're cool. especially family members, people you're comfortable with. So what I did initially is I created a space with people I was comfortable with, friends, people I talk to. Being an introvert does not mean you don't talk to anybody. It just means that your energies are channeled in a different way. So essentially, I just created a space where I can keep my energies at highest levels they can be, and that's around like-minded individuals. And small, intimate spaces I found have been good for me. Rather than being in a big old room, I don't do well in those type of spaces because I just lay back. And most times opportunities pass you by when you're in a cut like that.
Right.
So it's cool to do that if you at the party or whatever. But if you want to go talk to a girl, then you got to go out there and get it. And or you want to go talk to anybody, you got to go out there and get it. And I think the same thing in business. So instead of having these big spaces, I felt like, you know what, let me create a space where there are entrepreneurs. They don't necessarily have to be introverts, but if they are, that's cool too. And that's where the collective started. So it started with my friends, really. And they were my first collective, and we just talked about goals and dreams. Dope. And then it carried over to be with strangers. But again, it was kind of hand-picked strangers, so it wasn't completely strange.
Friends of friends.
Friends of friends who I knew were trying to do some dope stuff in their own right. So
that's a special network, to have friends of friends and then branch off from there.
Yeah.
But you did write a book.
I did.
And you talked a lot about your own personal life and basketball.
Yep.
So being on a team and that type of building, did that change the way that you interacted with people that are close to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, being on a team, playing sports my whole life has been, I never really even thought about introvert or extrovert. Mm-hmm. I just felt like being on a basketball team, you already have it's already like a small collective anyway.
It's a little family.
It's 10 to 12 dudes on the team, and the camaraderie around team sports and stuff like that is dope. And especially when you get the right mix of players, this becomes family, and these are people you kick it with pretty much all day, every day, especially in college. So you kick it with them from morning to night, and then you got road games and stuff like that. So you're with these people a lot of the time. And it being a small group, unbeknownst to me, it was perfect for me. And had I been on a football team with 100 niggas out there, that would have been crazy. But I think basketball fit me well. So, and not to mention, balling is always fun.
Oh, so ball is life.
Ball is life.
But with that, I'm sure it definitely structured your path. So coming from being such a high-level player at such a large school, super well-known, being UConn, coming off that, writing your book, I know you talked a lot about your adversity.
Yep.
And your mother being like your number one support there.
Yeah.
And having that system, did that change the way that you went in about doing your collectives and talking to people about dealing with adversities?
Yeah, for sure. It was going through the ups and downs. Being inside your own mind a lot, you tend to think that your problems are only yours and no one else is going through similar things. But in reality, we all going through similar stuff, just in different circumstances. And so after I realized that there are people going through similar things after the book came out. So I wrote the book, and I think I wrote the book in like 2015. And introverted old me was not telling people that I was writing a book. I just did it and came out with it, which is not a good idea. Do not just come out with something like that and hope people will buy your product, because you got to drum up some type of anticipation. You got to drum up some type of PR for it. You know what I mean? So I just wrote it and dropped it. And the book did all right, but it could have done better had I pushed it and been out there and been a little more forward with it. But still, after that, I went on a little mini book tour. We went to go face my fears and speak in front of people. And after that, doing a couple of those, it turned into conversations about life and less about the book. And then that's when I found that people had passions that were sitting in the back of their mind, and they just never acted on them. And that turned into me starting DoMode, because I'm realizing that everybody got something that they want to do. They just haven't acted on it. They haven't done it yet. And then I was like, you know what? this is what I like talking about. This is what I like engaging with. These are the kind of people I like being around. I've realized where my energy was coming from.
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, I got to do more of this. And there weren't spaces for me to readily do it. So I just created one.
Tapped into that space when you find your zone.
Yeah.
With that, like your mentors. So
yes.
Who showed you how to market yourself? Who showed you how to champion yourself?
My mentors, ironically, look nothing like me. I got a couple of mentors. I have two older white dudes of all people. They actually, I got in contact with them through basketball. They wanted me to train their kid, and in turn, I was going to ask them to put me on with their contacts for a job, actually.
Oh, awesome.
I was trying to be a financial advisor. And they both worked in the finance industry. So I was like, you know what, let me use your connects, and now on the back end, train your kids in basketball.
The universe conspires.
Yeah. So long story short, the training turned into us building a relationship, and just now is invites over for dinner. And, you know, now we're just kicking it, talking about life and
it's
aspiration.
Family.
So, they definitely gave me that confidence to go out there and do stuff. One of my mentors is the one who pushed me to write the book. And it was like, you got a great story, you got a great perspective and a unique one. So you should put that out there in some form. And at first it was just like, maybe you should just write it down. But then it turned into him putting me on with some of his contacts, and they suggested I write a book. And I said no like 3 times. And then after that 4th time, I said, all right, let's sit down and do it. And once I get going, it was like a 1-page turned into 400 real fast.
Wow.
And then you chop it down. The book is not 400 pages, but still, it got me going. And then I'm so glad that I took their advice, because it matured into where I'm at now.
No, that's awesome. So the book is called The Toughest 2.
Yep.
Are you going to write another book?
I got a couple of book ideas in my mind. Actually going to revamp The Toughest 2 and push that out again. Having learned all the things that I've learned over the years, I realized I didn't do that first rollout justice. Mm-hmm. So we're going to repackage it, put it back out, give it its legs that it deserves, and give it the push it needs.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So with that, we still haven't even mentioned, I'm going to fully unfold. JV is a Yalie.
Yep.
So through all this, you completed your book, you put it out. You have a podcast.
Yep.
That you thought of.
Yep.
That what made you create your podcast?
So stemming from the book, DoMode came about, and I saw the podcast wave. I was listening to podcasts. I'm like, you know what? This is a good extension of your business if you use it the right way.
Yeah.
And also when I was doing a lot of the talks and speaking engagements, there was a certain tone you had depending on what room you're in. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be able to let people know that there's a dichotomy to this particular individual. I mean, there's layers to everybody, but for me, I was just speaking in one way, and I needed a freer space to speak. And the podcast was, especially if it's your own podcast, no one can control how you talk or what you talk about. So I said, you know what? Let's create one. I got my boy JR. We spoke about it, and I think within like 7 days, we recorded our first podcast, and we've been going ever since. It's been 2 years. It's called The Famously Average, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever, YouTube. And it's been a freeing space. On there, we talk to millennial entrepreneurs and ambitious individuals, and we talk about contemporary topics, and it gets a little left sometimes and it gets a little right sometimes in terms of going off on tangents, but for sure it's a freer space.
And that's a dope space. I'm an avid listener of The Famously Average. That. No, it's really good. It's a really good podcast that will allow you to have a deeper look into you. I know I told you on a personal level.
Yep.
I think that it's so different for somebody to have written a book.
Yeah.
To have a podcast and to just give so much of themselves that people definitely think they know you on a different level.
Yeah.
And it's kind of special being an introvert.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking of people who don't know you or don't get the opportunity to get to know you, that they have these different mediums or avenues to find out about you or find out about what you're thinking and planning and being an entrepreneur. That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
So your next move that you do have, being a Yalie, a business owner, and a content creator, I know that you are also a designer on top of that.
Yeah.
Where are you finding this time?
The time, you find it if you really want to do it. I mean, I know that's that old cliche. If you really want something, you'll make time for it, but it's nothing truer than that, man. I think that if you want anything in this world is attainable, it's just a matter of how much time you're willing to put into it. And I subscribe to the 10,000 hour rule that if you put 10,000 hours into anything, you'll become a master at it. And I felt like with all the things that I'm doing, and I get sidetracked too. I don't want to hold people. It's been a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of ebbs and flows to all of this. So it ain't like a steady ascension.
Yeah.
I know people may hear all those things about me and feel like that's the contrary of an introvert, but I promise you, these are things that I had to work at and constantly work at. I'm still working at to be, be able to talk about myself without feeling like I'm bragging, or offer up information without feeling like I'm overstepping my boundaries, or even just coming out the house, because I got people who don't see me. If there wasn't social media, some people would never see me.
Yeah.
So it's just like I still got those tendencies, but I'm using what I'm learning to help further the mission. And so if you want to do something, you'll find the time.
Man, this is a man who doesn't just talk about it, he's really doing it. So when he says it's the year of the doer, you are definitely doing it.
For sure.
That's great. Where do you find and pull inspiration?
Inspiration comes from a variety of places. Being a former athlete, I'm competitive. So if I see people doing something dope, and I cheer them on, because I feel like if one of my peers got it, then that makes a lane for some of us to come through. But then the other part is like, yo, if they could do it, I could do it. And so I feel like sometimes I make up scenarios in my mind. Sometimes they're not even reality. It's just like somebody's coming after my spot and I gotta go get to it. And I feel like time is of the essence right now. So in a space where you got a massive computer in your pocket in terms of a phone and outreach to the world, there's no better time to be an entrepreneur than it is right now. And,
definitely.
If, like I said earlier, if you really, really want it, you can go out there and get it. You can make your own videos. You can get your own camera. You can everybody know how to use Photoshop and all that stuff now, you know what I mean? So it ain't no secret how to get it. It's just a matter if you want to do it or not.
To channel all that energy into one space. And I mean, I've definitely said it before, you've inspired me to unfold in a different way, to take my platform in another direction and actually go. But there's so many people you've inspired. So with that load, do you feel super responsible for these people that come to your collectives, that listen to you and the younger generation? I see that you mentor people.
Yeah, responsible, no, only because I don't place that much weight on the things that I say or do. To me, I'm just doing it and ain't nobody really paying attention. But I do know that there's an element of, if whatever you put out there, there's somebody looking, there's somebody watching.
Yeah.
So the responsibility is, for me, I feel like, is to pay it forward. Whatever I'm learning, to pay it forward, because there's things that I wish I would have known back in. I could have got my 10,000 hours earlier had I started earlier. So I'm just trying to do that for other people, but people who are worthy. I've noticed that there's times where I tried, when I first got into this space of just wanting to do whatever, I was trying to put it on everybody, but people weren't in that space. They weren't operating at that frequency yet. So I had to wait for them. And after I waited, I said, you know what? I can't be waiting on people. So instead, I changed my direction of how I disseminated my information. I used to go, if you look at earlier videos, which I'm embarrassed about, but I keep it up there for inspiration for myself, to let me know the progress that I've been making. I'm just talking at the camera, telling people what they should do, but who am I to tell you what to do? So instead, I've transitioned into showing you what I do. And if you can garner inspiration from that, then that's the way that it should go. So you can do with the information I put out as you will. But that's why I don't feel that much responsibility, because all I'm telling you is what I know and what I go through. And what you do with that information is up to you.
Definitely. I mean, as an introvert in business, your entire platform is to cater to those introverts.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy niche, because I don't think that I've seen that anywhere else.
Yeah.
What do you want these introverts to get from you?
I want DoMode to be, ultimately, as it grows, I want it to be a digital networking platform for introverted entrepreneurs and ambitious individuals. And what I mean by all of that, it took me a while to nail that down too. So I've been in a lot of different zones, and the website ain't fully where I wanted to be. I still got iterations I need to go through. But ultimately what I want it to be is a space for people to be able to get the networking, get the information that they need without having to feel like they got to go to a 300-person mixer or some networking event that you got to buy a drink ticket to, and all you're doing really is just sitting at the bar holding your drink and not talking to nobody, because those are awkward for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the generation below us are becoming more introverted because of the phone and less likely to hold conversations outside of that, outside of social media. So if this is a way that they can get that information all in one space rather than trying to go search for it all, I think that would be the ultimate goal.
So for that younger generation, I do see you with a couple younger people.
Yeah.
That's super intentional on your part?
For sure. I keep them around because they got good energy.
Yeah.
And two, it's my version of paying it forward. Like I said, I don't want to look at myself like I'm super old, but I do have some years underneath the belt for which mistakes have been made and wrong turns have been made. And I feel like if I could at least show them, and them being around, they could see, they can learn two things. One, they can learn from my mistakes, and two, they can learn what they ultimately want to be and get their 10,000 hours started earlier.
Definitely. JB did that, so you don't have to go through that.
Where?
No, but that's definitely amazing, going from these different parts of your life. I don't think that anybody has that type of duality.
Right.
You're originally from North Carolina, but you grew up in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
And then to be in Bridgeport, it almost feels like a bubble seeing Yale, a bubble that you can't really enter. I know we walked the Yale campus, and I told you myself that I didn't feel like I could ever have stepped on campus. And
likewise, 2-3 years ago, I felt the same way. But having been around the space long enough, I felt like it was a shot worth taking. Yeah. Because I've done some decent things in my life, and I feel like I never want to be that cat that just hit his peak in high school and then talk about that for the next 30 to 40 years. Like, I ain't want to be that dude. So I always constantly wanted to strive for more. I just didn't know what that more was until it came about. I never planned on writing a book. I never planned on a podcast. It was all things that kind of happened organically. And same thing happened with going to Yale, getting my master's there right now, and just completing my first year. It was just like, I felt like 2-3 years ago, I was playing basketball and I was in the gym, and I met a dude who actually was in the master's program, and he invited me out to go grab something to eat after we finished playing basketball. And long story short, he basically was just telling me how he got into Yale. And hearing him talk and speak, I'm like, this dude doesn't sound like he's that much smarter than me. So I was like, and maybe he was just trying to be relatable on that day. But but I took it as, this is an opportunity. What if I get in Yale? So that's how it started. So what if I took my shot? And then I was like, let me go sit with somebody. And then I sat with somebody. I went to an advisor, sat down. They told me what I needed to do, what I needed to get together. And it wasn't something that wasn't feasible. So I was like, I go grab that right now. So I got that stuff together, wrote my little essay, and let them know. I basically just gave them my resume, told them at that time I had the podcast and the book already down and DoMode established. So I knew I stood out from that perspective. For everything I lacked on the academic side, I had on the real life side. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Here, this is what I got. And hopefully you can mess with it.
That's beautiful when preparation meets opportunity.
That's how it came to be. And then I got that letter saying I was in. But then that's when there's like the reality sets in, like, all right, nigga,
I'm in.
You took your shot and you in now. And now you got to do the work
So it's crazy. So even hearing you talk about how you got in, it makes me think about the other people who aren't taking those shots.
Yeah.
That fear of, instead of failure, it's almost like fear of success. Do you see that with other people?
For real. All the time. I mean, a lot of people, another cliche out there, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
100%.
And I just feel like in this life right now, it's so short. People look at life being this long and drawn out thing. No, I mean, it could be over in an instant. So while you're here, you might as well shoot your shots.
Definitely.
And if you brick or airball, so what? Like, if I would have applied and didn't get in, nobody would have known, and it would have been fine. I would have moved on with my life. But I applied, I got in, I let people know, and just kept going. And now I'm here, and now I'm thinking about my next thing. And that's how I operate, though. I've always been that way. I've never really mapped out 5 to 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
I let life guide me, and then me make my decisions based off of what opportunities are in front of me. And so I never get too beside myself or ahead of myself. So being at Yale and being how I dress and how I talk and coming from where I come from is just another layer that I think Yale was missing, to be honest with you, because I haven't met anyone who looks or talks like me. But that's a good thing. So I can get in the classrooms off of my perspective from a place that they don't have. And then, and two, it's not just me giving them something, they're giving me something by,
definitely,
by giving me knowledge and all this stuff. So
that authenticity is so valuable. I mean, it definitely just increases your worth in the space because there's nobody else that looks like you. And it's knowing you for a short time, you're such an intentional person about almost everything that you do. From the way that you, oh, wow, that was a lot. From the way that you wear your hair to the way that you dress while you're there to the way that you organize your events and how you want them. Is that something that you learned from childhood or being coached? Because I know you've played different sports your entire life.
I played different sports, but it's actually something I learned more recently from people I look up to. Like Nipsey Hussle, we had a Nipsey Hussle event, and Jay-Z and J. Cole, and ironically, these are all rappers, and I'm not a rapper by any stretch of the imagination, but I am an artist, though. But just following the blueprint, really, and seeing that you can make it being you. And I think that that's something that gets lost in all of this, too, which is another reason why I think we're in a great time, because people are open to diversity now, more so than they've ever been.
Definitely.
So if before you felt like you had to be buttoned up, at least this is what your parents taught us and our grandparents taught us, because that's what they had to go through. In order to make it in the world, they had to assimilate. And now I feel like you could be you. People gravitate towards authentic people. And if you're authentically you, like a Cardi B or something like that, look at anybody that you look up to. You like them because they're them through and through. And we can spot fakes like that. You can sniff that out. And when we do, we stop messing with you. So I just feel like I got to be me. And if I can't make it being me, then I don't want to make it at all. So I just go, you say with intention, but really it's not that much thought behind it. I just recognize now what it is. Like, this is me. I've grown my hair, cut my hair. I may cut it again. I don't know. But it's just a matter of feel. I feel my way through. And whatever I'm feeling at the time, I go with. And I do recognize that can be off-putting to certain people. But those people aren't for me, and I'm not for them. And the right people will gravitate towards you, I feel like, you just by you being you.
Definitely. I think that's an incredible thing with all that you've accomplished and all the adversity that you faced. How do you take care of yourself?
The past, I want to say year or so, maybe 2, you've grown, you mature, you raise your frequencies, and the next thing, like I said, I'm looking for the next thing after I accomplish something. And I think now I'm in a space where I recognize that a lot of these things that I've gone through in life, that we all gone through in life, even things on the subconscious level, just having black skin, weigh on you in some capacity. And now I'm realizing what that weight is and how I feel about it, and being more in tune with my emotions about it, and being more emotionally intelligent, just learning. And going through a phase where I'm recognizing, mental health. I think that's something that's big right now. It's mental health and recognizing it.
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you find it easier? Because I think a lot of people are championing mental health and talking about what we should do. Like they're advocating for working out. They're advocating something that you've been doing, but advocating for therapy. They're advocating for being outside.
Yeah.
Talking to people, connecting, because like we talked about before, the generation below us is heavily on their phones.
Yes.
They're not touching, they're not grounding, they're not doing the things that we grew up doing.
Right.
What are you doing now, or who do you look to for that level of confidence that you have now that you're just like, these people, if they're not for me, they're not for me? Where do you get that?
I feel like life made me that way. Like I had to be this way. This isn't something that I innately came with.
Yeah.
I wish I was that cool, but I'm not. Like I just feel like after a while, when you see people not messing with you and not vibing with you for one reason or another, some people don't even tell you. They just leave you on red and don't respond. So after you go through all those iterations, you feel like, all right, what am I going to do with that? I'm going to chase somebody or try to make people my friends, or I'm just going to roll. And I chose to just roll. And before, I grew up I feel like I grew up in two different types of generations, or two different eras, I should say. Before, being the cool guy was the guy who was quiet, who was reserved, mysterious, the one in the back, in the cut. And now the cool guy has changed. Like, you can't be that way because people just bypass you.
Yeah.
Now you got to be out there all up in the video, blah, blah, blah.
You Diddy.
Yeah, you got to be Diddy. Like, you got to have, like, gold hair or, like, something wild.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like times have changed drastically in that front. And I realized that I'm guilty of trying to assimilate, trying to be what people say they like. And it just didn't feel right, you know? And thank goodness for my evolution. And thank goodness for my resolve, because I felt like people get lost in that. And if you mess around and get some likes because of it, then you get addicted to that. And for me, I was like, this ain't the way for me. Like, I gotta be me. Again, back to, like, if I can't make it being me, or if I can't be around you being me, then I don't want to be around you, or I don't want to make it, or I don't want to be in that room. So I miss out on opportunities because of that. I'm sure of it, but that's okay.
They're not for you.
They're not for me.
So with that in business, does that bother you sometimes in business outside of your personal life? How do you navigate being an entrepreneur and being individual JB?
Luckily, my passions align with who I am. So I'm me all the time. And that's intentional. I've found something that fits me, so I don't have to switch up. Versus some people wake up and feel like they gotta, put on a suit and get into someone else.
Yeah.
And be that other person for 9 to 10 hours. Not me. Like, I went to the 9 to 5, and after a while, like, because I went there, I had a suit on and all that stuff, and had a tie. And then I was just looking around. I'm like, no one else has a tie on? So it was a slow change. I took the tie off. But I still had the suit and stuff. And then I lost the jacket. Then I lost the button of it. Now, next thing you know, I'm coming in looking how I look. And then it's like, but my work is good. That's another key piece, is that, yes, you could be you, but you also have to provide value.
Yeah.
And I think that also gets lost in translation too. People just want you to accept them, but they don't bring you no value. So if I don't accept you being you and you brought no value, then what we doing? So there are two sides of it that you got to be aware of.
Definitely. It's when you just said that, it reminded me of a quote I heard. Going to college, being at Yale, huge name.
Yeah.
So that can open doors for you that somebody like myself, or somebody who didn't go to an Ivy, would never be able to step into.
Right.
Definitely provide you that. They were saying that college, especially graduate school, provides you, it's like a passport into these places and into these spaces.
For sure.
How do you feel about the introverts? Not even how do you feel. What advice would you give to the introverts that do not have that college education, or do not feel like they should be in these spaces?
Well, again, I'll harken back to the message of you having a phone in your hands give you a lot of power that just wasn't available back in the day. you have access to the world in a way that we've never had access to, which means that you have access to a ton of information.
Yeah.
And that information will allow for you to be who you want to be. You can, like, literally, you can be who you want to be if you take the time to research and learn and educate yourself. So by no means do I think anyone needs to have a certain kind of education or be at a certain place for them to be what they say they want to be. But I do recognize that there's certain professions and certain pathways that do require certain type of certifications. So if you want to be a doctor, then you can't just show up like this and not have gone to school and never operated on somebody. You do got to do that. But you got to recognize that's what it takes to get to you where you want to be at.
Right.
So you got to be cool with it. And so for introverts, hopefully you log on to #DoMode.com and you'll see these pathways and learn about them. And you say, you know what, I like that. You know what, I don't like that much. Or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But then you'll be able to see it and get exposed. It's all about exposure. That's what Yale is doing for me, is what I really use it for, is the exposure.
Yeah.
Because it opens my mind and my eyes to things that I don't readily have anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have. And now that I'm learning that, I'm exposing as many people as I can who will listen to the things that I'm learning. And some people just, it's in one ear and out the other, but some people are like, all right, and they chuck it in their back pocket and they use it when they need it.
No, that's an amazing thing that you're able to do. Like, I am an avid listener to your podcast. I do try to follow up on the things that you do, and just in general, people in our community. I just feel like our space right now in Connecticut, so many people are coming up, and they're just inspiring in a different way. Being a gym in our community, in our city, and you having your friends that you grew up with, or people that have known you from high school. Does that make you feel a way that they're not taking the information that you're readily giving and supplying? Like, you have a book, and do you think that the people nearest to you have read it?
Not all. What I've also learned on this journey is that your support will come from strangers mostly. It will come from people you don't know or haven't known you. And it would be nice to have all the people around you support you in the way that you have, or see your vision the way that you see it. But in reality, most of them are just not there. Their experiences in their lives have led them down a different path, and they just haven't reached that frequency yet.
Yeah.
And some of them come along the way, and then they start talking to you about the things you was talking about 4 years ago. But, that's just the way it goes. I listen. And but for the most part, I've gotten over the feeling of needing them to support it because others have. And again, back to people, the right people are going to gravitate towards whatever it is you're doing. So you're going to develop that community one way or another if you provide them the value that's warranted.
Definitely. Let's talk about celebration.
Yeah.
What you just said just made me think of another rapper situation. I know when, let's just take Nicki Minaj for example. I know that she's a New York native, and she didn't bubble until she got with Gucci Mane, which is a Southern rapper. So moving outside of Connecticut helped her expand, and then she was able to come, outside of New York, helped her, I'm trying to make everything Connecticut, but outside of the tri-state in general, went to another space, received so much love, so many followers. They were really interested in her style because she was different. Yeah. And then everybody at home was able to celebrate her once she got to a certain level.
Yeah.
Why do you think it takes people nearest to you so long to celebrate what you're doing?
Because they just tolerate you and they don't celebrate you. And I'm a big advocate on people going where they celebrate it and not just tolerate it. But you're also you don't stand out where you at because you grew up in this space. So more than likely you're a product of your environment, which would more than likely mean that you look like everybody else in your environment. You dress like everybody, you talk like everybody else. So you're not really that different. But when you leave or you go to another space and you stick out like a sore thumb. So if I was to go down to Atlanta right now, I'm sure the people in Atlanta will look at me a little different because they just know I'm not from there.
Yeah.
My mannerisms or the way I talk and all that stuff is just different. And if you are authentic in your being different, then people gravitate towards that. And that's when you build up your little network, and then your friends and family who knew you for years are now gone on to
and
you.
They're running with it.
And then they're running, and now they knew you, and they got all these stories about you, but they wasn't supporting you on the way up. That's just the way a game goes. Like, I battled with that for like the first 2 years of me doing what I was doing. And I'm just like, yo, what? But I also had to understand that I wasn't making enough traction to warrant the celebration that I wanted or that I thought I deserved. So I just had to keep going. And I still ain't nowhere near where I need to be, but the celebration is going to come when it comes. You can't scream for it, because if you do, you look like a lame.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, and if we want to keep it on Nicki Minaj is dope. But once she started talking about how, complaining about how people are celebrating Cardi B, it was terrible. It was bad for her brand. And she just wasn't letting people do the celebration for her. Some people subscribe to the theory that you need to celebrate yourself. Introverted person such as myself,
going for it.
I let other people do the celebrating, and when it comes, it comes. And if it doesn't, that's not going to stop the mission.
So that's just keep doing. I mean, it just always comes back to just continually doing whatever's on your heart, whatever these passion projects that you've been able to create and have them their fruition. They're completely building, and I see them just going much bigger than what they are right now. How do you change this landscape? Because so much we've talked about all these rappers that inspired us. Like it was the quickest thing to us.
Yes.
I feel like not only the younger generation, but us, we celebrate the stars, the basketball stars, the rappers, and these are our influencers. Maybe the flat tummy tees of the world. So it's really different. But here's somebody like you, very accessible, giving away these gems. You're a Yaley, you're a collegiate athlete, D1 at that.
Yeah.
So like that type of coaching, just on a personal level, whether it be finance, whether it be athletics, whatever you want to do is right there. How do we get them to channel their celebration your way? Is it you marketing that? Is it you?
One of my homeboys told me I'm too humble, and he said I need to start bragging about some of the stuff I've done to let people know that you can accomplish these things while doing it this way. And to some extent, he's right. I won't ever be that dude who's boasting and bragging freely like that, but I should let people know that you can accomplish the same type of materialistic aspirations that you may have, thinking that it can only be obtained being a rapper or an athlete. You can do that in a variety of other ways. You can get the car you want, you get the chain you want, you get all the tats you want by doing these things. You know, I know my lawyer friend who's making bank, and he got all that stuff. And I got, you know, even within myself, you know, you could obtain these things. Now, I think that's superficial, so I don't necessarily go down that route. Not to say that if I got, you know, a bag, I won't come out with a OG chain, because I would. But at the same time, I feel like in general, our culture needs to shift towards celebrating a multitude of things rather than just two ways, because we all know that those two ways are very, very limited in the number of people.
Slim chance of becoming an athlete.
Yeah, like it's hard.
In the NBA.
And it's hard as hell.
Or the NFL, or being a rapper.
And if we started to celebrate the kids who wanted to be the lawyers and the doctors, or who wanted to take a different path, then we would see a huge burst in the amount of kids going those paths, because kids they're influential. They're heavily influenced by what we do as adults. So if we got a community that celebrates the kid who got into the Ivy League, or celebrates the kid, not even just the Ivy League, the kid who got into school because he said he ultimately wanted to go to school. If we celebrate that in a way that we celebrate the kid getting a Division I scholarship to play football, then we would see more kids be more prone to putting it out there like that. But we just treat it like it's regular, so no one really thinks it's special. But it is special. The stats show that there's not a lot of people who look like us able to obtain high-level degrees, or go to Ivy Leagues, or even just do the things that are we've deemed conventional, like taking care of your family and, you know, building strong relationships and having mental stability and stuff like that. Like those things are are not as normal as we think they are in our community. So we definitely should celebrate them when we see them.
Definitely. I mean, you're an advocate for making sure people are actually doing and dreams are definitely coming true.
For sure.
People are actually putting plans to action, and you were the blueprint, one of our blueprints right here. And you're Black, of course.
Black as hell, man.
Black mixed with Black. And extremely cultured, because your life has given you all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
And you have this level of duality in which you're able to navigate both spaces and still maintain your individuality.
Yeah.
What makes you happy, Black, and cultured?
I think that being me and being able to do the things I want to do while remaining me has made me happy, Black, and cultured. I haven't deviated from myself.
Yeah.
I haven't lost myself, even I've been in spaces where there's no one who looks like myself. And I'm not going to dilute myself just to be in certain spaces. So I think all of that encompassing, I feel like that's what makes me happy, Black, and cultured. I feel like that's what gets me going.
Important. That's so important to maintain that way. Is there anything you want them to know about #DoMode that they might not know already?
I just feel like it's a safe space for introverted entrepreneurs. I feel like it's a safe space for ambitious individuals. I feel like people need to realize what their passion is. And if you don't know, that's okay, because I didn't realize mine until a little later in life. So it's not like it's the end of the world. I just want you to keep doing, though. If you don't know exactly what you want to do, try stuff out. And eventually you'll find what it is that you like to do. And hopefully that'll be the way you can monetize your life. And hopefully that'll be the way, because I feel like that's the best. When people are happy doing what they're doing, they give off better service, they give off better products, and ultimately it makes for a happier environment. So not to get all, mushy on you, but, do what you love, man.
I mean, he got these 1,000 hours. I mean, you're hearing it from a man who has 7 jobs.
Well, and I'm not asleep.
No.
I do it.
And they're going to pay out in a big way. So if you don't know him, you better hit him up now before you can't hit him up later.
Hit me while you can.
So definitely, Mack. My name is Mack. You can definitely find my secondary page at Happy Black and Cultured with Happy Black and Cultured man, JB.
Yeah.
DoMode. This is the year of the doer. If you're not doing what you want to do right now, please follow this blueprint, because it's free. There's so many mediums you can find him on. I mean, read that book. Go listen to Famously Average. You can definitely just hit him up for advice. Right there on the page, it's like a question link on #DoMode.com.
You could do
it. If you have questions, ask this man, because this is a light and a gem that you will not find. Okay?
Well, I appreciate you taking out your time. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for staying with me and unfolding. You either going to fold or unfold.
Oh, gang, I like that.